everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining the OpenStax and Science Interactive webinar today. My name is Kissa Thompson. I am the presentation specialist here at OpenStax located in Houston, Texas. And while we wait for others to join in, please let us know where you're joining from. And I see you already did get started, so I want to give a little shout out. So hello to Texas, a lot of Texas people here. Hello. Okay, we have Kansas, Illinois, Georgia, LA. Hello, Canada. Thank you all for joining in today. We're going to wait about 5 more seconds. We have a lot of Texas people, Dallas, Texas. Okay, hello. All right. Chicago. Okay. Kansas City. All right. We're going to wait 5 more seconds. We're going to wait for some more people to join us, and then we'll jump right in. But hello to everyone, and we're so excited to have you today. Michigan, Virginia, New Jersey. Okay, East Coast. So let's get started today. So most of you probably know what OpenStax is, but if you're new to OpenStax, there are a few key things you'll want to know. First, OpenStax is an educational initiative based out of Rice University, a 501(c) nonprofit organization located in Houston, Texas. OpenStax is a mission-oriented organization, and our mission is to improve education access and learning for everyone. One of our main areas of work is creating a library of openly licensed, peer-reviewed textbooks. These textbooks are available for free online in WebView and PDF formats. Over the last decade, we have become the world's largest publisher of free open education resources. OpenStax has had a large impact on students and instructors across the globe. Since publishing our first textbooks in 2012, we have saved 7 million students over $2.9 billion in textbook costs. OpenStax's main area of work is offering 70 openly licensed textbooks for college and K-12 courses. Over 2,200 colleges in 153 countries are using an OpenStax textbooks. These accomplishments would not have been possible without the support of our OpenStax allies like Science Interactive and instructors like you. All of our books are designed to meet the standard scope and sequence requirement of the respective courses and are written and reviewed by subject matter experts who are compensated for their work. Each of our books also goes through an extensive peer review process to ensure that the content is up to date, clear to understand, and inclusive and representative of diverse audiences. Our textbooks look like a lot of the other textbooks that are out there. However, unlike textbooks that aren't OER, our textbooks are 100% free and available under an open license so instructors can modify, revise, and rearrange the content any way they like. Here at OpenStax, we offer much more than just textbooks. Each of our books come with its own unique suite of free instructors and student resources. These can include test banks, lecture slides, solution guides, LMS course cartridges, and customizable doc files for each book. Accessibility is one of OpenStax's top priority. To make our book as widely available as possible, we offer our textbook for free on our website in an interactive web view format. You can also download free PDF copies of our textbooks in our website. This option is particularly helpful for students who lack reliable internet access. Since our textbooks are available for free online, students can access our book from day one of class. From our research, we've learned that 10% of students prefer print. We sell our textbooks at a low cost through our Amazon page and campus bookstores. Additionally, our free instructors and students' resources are also available for free on our website. To protect the academic integrity of our resources, instructors must create an instructor's account to download our instructors' resources. All instructors' account requests are manually verified by our customer support team, ensuring only instructors are using our resources like test banks. As our library of textbooks continue to grow, we're excited to share numerous titles that we have published this spring. We have 8 nursing titles and Introduction to Python Programming. If you would like additional information about any of these titles, please reach out to our customer support team via our OpenStax website. Here at OpenStax, we know that digital technology is essential for teaching, especially in today's hybrid learning environment, and that finding the right technology for your course can be challenging. We decided to help streamline this process through partnering with nearly 100 education technology organizations that offer products aligned with each of our textbooks. In exchange for using our content in their products, our technology partners, known as allies, provide us with mission support fee. Ultimately, OpenStax allies enrich OpenStax material with low-cost, high-value resources to support instructors and students while providing support to OpenStax to keep the books current and accessible. Now I'll pass it over to Science Interactive. Thank you again so much for joining us and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you so much, Kissa, and thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Kate Runny-Jancy. I am the Chief Academic Officer here at Science Interactive. For the last 9.5 years, I've worked with our scientists, instructional designers, and graphic designers to build out 14 different disciplines and over 450 labs to support students who are taking their laboratory courses online. I'm also thrilled today to introduce you all to Cheston Saunders. Cheston has over a decade of teaching experience in science courses across North Carolina. He holds a degree in biology, chemistry, and education. Cheston's research focuses primarily on improving student success in post-secondary science courses. And notably, he is the recipient of the 2024 two-year College Biology Teaching Award from the National Association of Biology Teachers. So thank you, Cheston, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So to kick things off today, we want to really discuss the importance of online laboratory course offerings and how Science Interactive supports these. To do this, we'll be sharing data from Science Interactive's 2024 annual lab report with you. Before we jump into the data, I wanted to share a little bit of background around our 2,100 participants in the survey. For our 2024 report, we received responses from nearly 1,900 students, 91% of whom had taken at least one online science lab course in the past year. Additionally, we saw a nearly equal mix of science majors and non-majors represented amongst our students, with 4 primary disciplines, A&P, biology, chemistry, and microbiology being at the forefront, although there were many others represented. For our instructors and admins, we had just shy of 300 respondents, 77% of which were instructors. Amongst our faculty participants, at least 50% had taught at least one online science laboratory course in the last year. Additionally, we had a slightly higher representation of community college instructors, with 60% of respondents teaching at a community college and 40% at a 4-year institution. So let's dive into the data. As many of you know, at many institutions, science courses were really the last ones to move online. And the reason for that was really the perceived difficulty in translating the hands-on laboratory component to an online modality. Delivering quality online labs is not always easy. And when we ask faculty who moved their lab courses online what the greatest challenges they experienced in bringing their lab courses online, quality, affordability, and resources were really the most frequently cited concerns. However, these faculties did find ways to overcome these challenges. So when it comes to quality, 80% of faculty said that recreating a hands-on lab experience was really a top challenge they faced. However, they were able to overcome this through the incorporation of a hands-on lab kit, which 75% of the faculty we spoke to found comparable to an in-person lab experience on campus. Of course, with a lab kit comes concerns around affordability, with nearly 80% of faculty concerned about ensuring that their course remain affordable for students to take. When we dug into this further, 71% of students found that the cost of a hands-on lab kit was actually aligned with the value of being able to do labs from home, citing cost savings that came with work doing online labs, such as not having to commute to campus or find childcare or take time off from their jobs. Additionally, 56% of STEM educators balance the cost of the kit in their course by implementing an OER text. Finally, 51% of instructors cited limited time and resources as a challenge in bringing their lab course online. Nevertheless, 77% of instructors actually found incorporating the hands-on lab kit easy when it came to setting up their course. When it comes to teaching online lab courses, there are several ways to approach bringing a lab experience in. Instructors can opt for a hands-on lab kit, for virtual simulations, or a mix of both. We wanted to understand which lab modalities were essential for bringing lab courses online, and strikingly, admins, instructors, and students all agreed that hands-on lab experiences were essential in an online lab course. To really highlight some of these statistics, 84% of deans and department chairs rated hands-on labs as the most effective format for online students to learn science, and 83% of students said that the hands-on labs that they performed in their courses helped them learn the knowledge and skills they needed, whether they be non-majors who were just taking a single science course or major students who were going on to additional higher level science courses. So where does that leave virtual simulations? When we spoke to instructors who used exclusively virtual simulations in their course, 60% said they felt their students would have learned more in the laboratory course if they had had a hands-on experience. However, that's not to say that there isn't benefits to virtual labs. 91% of students said that virtual simulations incorporated into their lab course helped to make the course more engaging. And strikingly, 85% of campus and online students both reported that virtual pre-labs would have helped them feel more prepared to enter into a hands-on laboratory environment. So, how can you deliver a high-quality lab experience that really supports all students? That's where Science Interactive can come in. Science Interactive has over 30 years of experience in ensuring all students, no matter where they are taking their courses, have access to rigorous and engaging lab experiences. So for students who are taking an online or a hybrid lab course, we've created hands-on lab kits with corresponding curriculum that support a lab experience that's comparable to their campus counterpart. And for campus-based students, we support virtual pre-labs to allow students to really have a trial experiment experience before they get into their on-ground lab. We work with over 1,000 institutions and support 14 different disciplines, ranging from non-majors courses like geology and forensics, up to majors-based courses like anatomy and physiology and microbiology. And of the disciplines that we support, every single one is Quality Matter certified and 6 align with OpenStax textbooks. Science Interactive really strives to ensure that every student has access to a high-quality lab experience, no matter their location. And through our partnership with OpenStax and the integration of the OpenStax text into our platform, we really can provide students with an academically rigorous laboratory experience that's accessible and affordable, including hands-on labs, virtual labs, pre-labs, and textbook. So how do we do this? Within our platform, you will find access to the hands-on labs and virtual simulations that correspond to your course. As an instructor, we'll work with you to make sure that the labs that you're teaching align with your syllabus and your course learning outcomes. From there, we can incorporate the OpenStax text and make that accessible to students in the platform menu, as well as directly embedding the content into the curriculum that the students are using. So let's take a look at a few examples. And I picked out one of my favorite labs today, our digestive system lab from anatomy and physiology. So in our first example here, we have our histology of digestive structures experiment. So you can see here on the left-hand portion of the screen, the students have access to their procedure for working through this experiment. This is a virtual simulation experiment where they're using a virtual microscope. You can see on the right. And within that text, they're going to have access to the procedure for the lab. And within there, there's a call out in that light brown box to their OpenStax textbook, bringing them back to a link that's going to bring them to the section on histology and identifying different types of tissues as a reinforcement for what they should have learned in their lecture. Let's take a look at another example. Here we have our fetal pig dissection, where students are dissecting the digestive system. The student has their protocols, they have images to support them through the dissection, and then they're also going to have that link back to the digestive system chapter in the OpenStax text to remind them, hey, here are the structures that you should be looking for as you're performing the dissection, and here's a reminder of what they do. And so it really allows students to have that balance of the hands-on, the virtual simulation, as well as the text to support the activities they're working on. So when you put it all together, Science Interactive offers access to hands-on labs, virtual simulations, all of which can support your online laboratory course, with the added benefits of direct integration of the OpenStax text into this platform to really support an affordable hands-on lab experience for students. Taking that one step further, our platform can be seamlessly integrated into any of the major learning management systems to really allow students a one-click access into their laboratory content and their text. Now, you've heard a little bit from me about Science Interactive. I am thrilled to pass things over to Cheston to share more about his online lab courses. Cheston, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thanks, Kate. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. So I've taught, as Kate said, chemistry and biology for a little over 10 years now. I mostly teach General Chem 1 and 2, as well as Anatomy 1 and 2. I generally average about 24 students a section. Some have more, some have less. I primarily teach hybrid and online, so I think especially since we shifted online after COVID and students really like the hybrid sort of format, I do a lot of hybrid courses as well. I do mostly just use the lab materials for the online sections. However, I have tried it for hybrid as well. Most of my students are science majors or pre-allied health, so a lot of pre-allied health in the anatomy and physiology courses. So over the next couple of slides, I'll just give you a general sort of overview of how I run my classes, some key aspects that I think are great for using OpenStax and Science Interactive. So if any questions come up, feel free to think about those. I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. So I know we all, after teaching online, we get challenges all the time. So some of those are primarily cost and especially lab safety, right? How do students perform labs that are in a high quality, rigorous, but in the safety of their own home and do that appropriately? We've always worried about rigor and quality. That's especially important coming now with this idea of artificial intelligence and a lot of things like ChatGPT, how all of that works together. I'll talk about how I kind of navigate and guide students appropriately, and then finally wrap up with academic integrity. So one thing that I really like about balancing cost with high quality materials and affordability is that OpenStax is free, so students don't have to pay for that. As an instructor, I've gotten a lot of complaints over the years, textbook costs are rising, right? And we want to have students have a really good high quality material. So when you move to OpenStax, those costs go down dramatically. And now, if you're using a lab kit like from Science Interactive, right, students are getting high quality learning materials, but instead of adding that cost on top of a textbook, right, they're sort of an either or kind of situation. So it's not too much of a burden on students. And then you also have to think of the savings now. Students aren't spending gas money going to campus, right? So now some of those resources can be reallocated. OpenStax as well gives students high quality learning materials. I'm constantly impressed with OpenStax as well as Science Interactive with the rigorous peer review process, the writing process. So it's important that the textbook not only be peer reviewed, but also those ancillary materials like your Science Interactive materials, right? They have to go through rigorous pilot testing and then revision. So one thing that I really like about Science Interactive is this safety piece. Right? So when we are looking at conducting labs in our own sort of home, right, students have to have guidance on that, right? So how does that work? Well, with Science Interactive, they can't access any lab without doing a getting started module and a lab safety module. So that way, everyone, no matter if they've had a science class before or not, is kind of coming in on the same playing field. And that really helps mitigate any kind of problems. I also really like that Science Interactive products include liability insurance, right? That protects both your students as well as you as instructor, right? So now, as long as procedures are being followed, we have some kind of liability insurance for that. I really like that Science Interactive embeds videos within the actual lab assignments, right? And then I can, as an instructor, complement by making my own videos or sharing my own resources. So it's really great not to have to create all that from scratch, right? Because some things with safety, I just don't think about because I've been doing this for so long, but Science Interactive has a wide team to get feedback from instructors across the country. They can make adjustments and modify with that feedback as needed to say, oh, well, my students need more suggestions on how to do this or fewer suggestions on that. And I think that's really helpful when it comes to mitigating danger, especially when students are doing these experiments around family members, pets, things like that. So safety is always paramount. As I mentioned before, and as Kate mentioned, rigor and quality are critical for online science education. So I really like that Science Interactive products are Quality Matter certified. So if you're not familiar with Quality Matter, it's a very rigorous sort of process. And I think one of the strengths is the idea of alignment between objectives, right, and those actual learning materials. And what's really great with that integration, right, is that now students can go directly to that textbook right from the lab platform. So now you can clearly see the connection between the lecture and lab, which is something I've heard from students over and over again. Lecture doesn't completely correlate with lab, right? So now with that textbook right there seamlessly, that's been reviewed over and over again, it can now sort of bridge that gap between skills in the lab and the lecture environment. As I mentioned, alignment is especially critical to effective learning. Right? So one thing that I've done a lot for guiding and engaging students is customizing those materials. Right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over again each semester. I've customized both the OpenStax text as well as the Science Interactive platform, and now I can use that over and over each semester. And then as I get more and more feedback, I can make more tweaks as I go along. So it's not having to reinvent the wheel over and over again, which I think is great. That customization allows me to sort of take out material that I might not focus on right now. Maybe I want to come back to it a little bit later, or maybe I want to frame it in a different way with a different assignment. By being able to go in and edit that material on either Science Interactive or the OpenStax platform allows me to ensure that my students are getting a seamless learning experience. So academic integrity is something I think that if you've taught at all in the past, well, I guess since classes were invented, right, you've had to deal with, right? So one thing that I've found has been really helpful when it comes for academic integrity is to use formats that can't really be super easily shared and edited between students. For example, PDFs, or maybe have students create a graphic or an image. That's something that I've started doing a lot recently. I really like memes or sharing information in that way. So I've had students create comic strips or memes and things like that. So that way they can show their sort of pop culture knowledge, which I know very little pop culture, so I'm learning as well right along with them. And I think that's a fun way that students don't view it as a traditional assignment, right? They're making something that can't really be shared super easily or re-edited, and they're also learning a lot. So those videos are also helpful. One thing I often do is have students do a video of them creating the assignment, or not creating the assignment, but doing the lab itself, right? This is really helpful at the very beginning of a lab or very beginning of a course, because I can sort of see techniques, right? If you've ever had a student do a dissection when you're right there next to them, they'll kind of chop it up, right? It looks terrible, right? But then after a while, when I'm in lab, I can sort of guide them in a certain way, right? But if students are just submitting videos, I can't really see their technique. Or just submitting images, I can't see their technique as well. So what I like to do the first time they have a dissection is to have them record a video. And then I can look and see, oh, you're going in with too much force, or you're going too quick, that type of thing. Then I can provide feedback so that now they can do a sort of better job doing that dissection moving forward. As I mentioned earlier, that continual adjustment piece is really critical for online learning. No two groups of students are the same. Right? I might have a group of students one semester that struggles with technology, my next group might not. So I always have to make changes, and that customizable piece makes things super easy. One of the hardest things I think students struggle with when it comes to science is they look for the right answer all the time, and so much of science is about the process of getting the answer. Right? We can always go back and do it again if we sort of make a mistake or we have an error. So one thing I like to do is have students share their data on the discussion board. Then they can analyze it as a group and figure out, oh, I have too high of a number here. What did I do wrong? And then their peers go in and give feedback back and forth. I think maybe your ratio is inverted for your calculation or something like that. And when that happens, I feel students get less stressed about the right answer, and they more focus on the process of science, which is easier to recreate in an in-person classroom because you're there to guide the discussion. But I think by sharing actual data on the discussion board, it really alleviates some of that stress or pressure to get that right answer. It also makes discussion boards harder to copy, right? Because you have to have data to begin with, right? So it makes it harder to sort of cheat or that type of thing. So I think that really helps a lot and makes discussion boards more engaging, because I know as a student, I really didn't like discussion boards, but I know they're important to sort of recreate that connection. So sort of the overarching ideas here was that Science Interactive is a reasonable cost, especially when you pair with a free textbook such as OpenStax. And that idea of customizing both the Science Interactive and the OpenStax platform to sort of connect to one another and make things seamless and to show those learning objectives is really powerful, especially when you think about these products are now QM certified or Quality Matter certified. This is vital because it shows that alignment piece. And it also verifies that students now have access to accessible materials that have gone through rigorous ADA assessment, right, to ensure that all students, regardless of learning abilities, can be successful. This also allows us to clearly link and customize those student learning objectives so that now students understand why they're doing a particular lab or how they're doing a particular lab or why it really matters. I can't tell you the number of students in anatomy who get tired of looking at tissues and ask me why they need to know that. Well, tissues are the fabric for your body, right? So if you're going into nursing, you need to know, well, how connective tissue functions different than epithelial tissue, right? So by clearly linking those objectives, it can show why this lab matters to the actual lecture information.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cheston. So as a refresher, Science Interactive is really everything you need to learn and teach science laboratory courses in one platform with our hands-on lab experiments, interactive virtual simulations, and integrated OpenStax textbooks. We're going to open things up to questions and Q&A. But we do want to let you know that if you're interested in learning more, you can use this QR code here. And in a moment, I will share with you a link to our lab report. If you want to see more of the data from our survey, we welcome that. And you can use the QR code I'll show momentarily. So Cheston, I do have a couple of questions for you from our audience. The first one being, when you first brought your lab courses online, how did you approach lab selection and determining, whether you're going to use a virtual or a hands-on lab?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So like I mentioned before, I think learning objectives are really critical. So I really sat down and looked at my learning objective to see what is the goal for this lab or the goal for this course or what do I need to accomplish for that? Because there are, I think, some labs that are more critical than others. And then you have to come down to this idea of cost, right? So for example, for anatomy, right, I could either use the virtual lab scope, which comes with Science Interactive, or I could have had students buy their own microscope, right? So you had to kind of weigh those ideas. So I felt like I would rather have them do more dissections and just use the virtual scope versus spending all that money on a scope, which are quite reasonably priced, right? But still, it's have to think about my population, right? A lot of my students are, first generation students. They're working full time. They have families. So every little bit of money matters, right? So I'm trying to figure out how to balance that idea. So what I thought was, let's look at the learning objective. Well, I don't know that focusing the microscope for people who are going into nursing is as critical as learning how an organ functions, if that makes sense. Tissues are still vital, but I felt like it was less important in that idea. So I just looked at my learning objective and shared that information with Science Interactive, and they helped me create a kit that was appropriate.
Awesome. And then when it comes to working with students in a remote environment, do you do any synchronous activities with them to help support, making sure they're doing the labs correctly? How do you approach that?
Yeah, so I've recorded quite a few videos. So I don't do as much synchronous. I typically do depending on what the lab is. So for example, if there's a gas laws lab that has kind of intense math involved in it. So for that one, I don't do a required synchronous, but I will do optional synchronous this week. So hey, I'm here this week from 6 to 7. Do you have a question? Feel free to pop in. I'll open to the group in general kind of thing. So I'll say, hey, I'm here. I'll be happy to help you or support you if you have any questions. But this is not required. But I do optional synchronous things. I don't do any required synchronous meetings.
Awesome. And then another question we had come in was about, students that you have that may be transferring, how are the labs, do you get feedback in terms of ease of transfer or any difficulties that students have in transferring the labs to other institutions?
So I have had to submit syllabi before that showed that they had some kind of hands-on lab component. I haven't had any students have issues transferring the lab, but they've always been with a lab component or a lab kit. I would assume that it matters for places, since I've had to submit syllabi before that showed that the lab kit was actually some kind of physical hands-on component. But I have not had any all virtual. I haven't taught any all virtual for a while.
Awesome. Okay, we have a couple of questions related to Science Interactive in particular, so I'll take care of those. So we have a few questions around costs of lab kits. And so really costs of the lab kits can range, and it really depends on the number of labs that you're going to select, as well as, how many hands-on, how many virtual simulations you're going to incorporate into that kit. So it really can be quite a range. Our average cost per kit is about $150 for the kit. But like I said, it's going to depend on the number of labs and the ratio of hands-on to digital. And we will customize that quote for you as you explore the labs you may be interested in using. Another question that popped up here has been related to ADA accessibility. All of the Science Interactive content is WCAG 2.2 compliant for students. So we're really proud of that. We have another question here. Been utilizing virtual interactive simulations and home kits for pharmacy compounding. What resources are available? So for folks who are interested in pharmacy technician, that is another one of our programs within the allied health space. We offer hands-on resources for students to learn the basics of compounding, pill counting, creating emulsions, solutions, etc. And all of that is available within the 17 labs we have in our pharmacy technician program. Okay. I am going to do a quick check for any other questions we might have today. Let's see. Okay, I think that is all the questions we have. So I'll just end with thank you all so much for joining us today. If you are interested in seeing more of the data from our State of the Online Science Labs report, you can use this QR code here. If you have questions about our labs or are interested in learning more about our kits, please feel free to reach out. And Kissa, I'll hand things back over to you.
Thank you. That was an amazing webinar. So we are so happy that you guys were able to join us today. Thank you to everyone for spending time with us, and to Science Interactive for an amazing webinar and for being a wonderful OpenStax technology partner. And if you do have any further questions, you can contact Science Interactive directly or OpenStax. We look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Again, thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye for now. All right.